Good evening, wool gatherers, and welcome to the 114th episode of Wanderings and Wool Gathering. Tonight, joining JPP, Metalhead Monday, and me, your handsome host Foggy, is a very special guest. She was selected as the best vocalist in 2021 at the ICMA Awards. She won Best Music Video at the Oneros Film Awards. I'll have to ask her if I said that correctly. And at the Canadian Cinematography Awards, as you can see right there. She has written 2 records and recorded 2 records with Billboard's #1 charting musician Tim Janssen in 2015. Oh, there's Mr. Janssen. I'll have to ask her if that's how you say his name. I assumed it wasn't Jansen's. Hopefully I'm right. And then in 2015, she recorded Metamorphosis, and we are all big fans of that. We're going to dig into that a little bit tonight. And then in 2020, she came back with Apogee, another fantastic record. Recently, our guest performed with our old pal, Michael Ciravolo, on Beauty and Chaos's Behind the Veil. She did a song called Orion, and it is a fantastic song. We are all huge fans of that. Recently, she was on Chuck Wright's Sheltering Sky. Just came out a few weeks ago, and so we definitely wanted to dig into that. She's got 3 songs on that one. And prior to that, I guess, just a few months before that, she had another 2 songs with Harry Votto. She is a very, very busy lady. She has a beautiful voice and is a true artistic aesthetic to her that I think everybody's going to enjoy. So I'd like to welcome Whitney Tai.
Hey, guys. Thank you for
Hey,
having
Whitney.
me.
Goodness, that was a mouthful. You have done a lot in a very short time.
It does feel like that.
I
Yes.
have a grievance.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
You always call yourself the handsomest one of the group.
Oh,
I mean,
I didn't
come
say
on.
handsome. I didn't say handsome. I just said handsome.
But
That's
you
all.
always call us other things. So therefore, you're kind of setting the bar at a different level for Monday and I. Are you anti-beard? Let's get that out in the open.
you
No,
all have some form of a beard, so
this is true. This is true. But I'm the
That's-
only one without a theme song.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
There's reason for that too.
Could be. Could be.
I'm a procrastinator. Let's get it right.
Well, Miss Tai, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Still afternoon for me. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day in LA. It's hotter today than it's been, but yeah, I've been good. It's been very busy, especially with the release of new music and working on a ton of other things in tandem with that. So it's been good.
Yeah. Let's I guess maybe we should go back to the beginning and kind of work our way through and maybe we'll end on Sheltering Sky, which is your latest stuff. So let's talk a little bit about where you came from. You're in LA now, but you didn't grow up in LA, right?
No, I grew up in New York City, just about like 25 minutes outside of Manhattan. I went to school in the city, but I grew up in the Westchester County area of New York.
Very cool.
Lived
Well-
there for probably until my mid-20s, and then I moved to Jersey actually for a little while when I was changing jobs. So I've kind of hopped around a little bit before I moved to the West Coast.
Is that where your musical roots took hold?
New York is definitely my musical roots. New York will always be my roots, regardless of why I left. And now that I'm here in LA.
What were
Very
your what were some of your early influences?
My earliest influences were Pink Floyd, the Beatles, Jethro Tull. I was listening to a lot of progressive and hard rock, and even Metallica was big for when I was younger. But I also loved all the pop shit that every young girl wants to listen to, like Spice Girls and Britney Spears. Like, I loved the whole pop persona, but I always connected more to the deeper, more intellectual, like symphonic sort of music where there's like an actual journey musically, and it doesn't necessarily have to conform to like the commercial top 40 sort of format.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
interesting.
so talking about your influences, I'm going to spring this on you here. I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. So
Uh-oh.
normally in our show, we do some kind of challenge, but we have a week to think of what our answers will be. So I won't make this one too hard. But Gun to your head, Desert Island. What are 3 bands you absolutely cannot live without? Bands or groups, singers, whatever.
Stone Temple Pilots, Alice in
Nice.
Chains,
Love it.
and I'll say Pink Floyd.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely
so
not
interesting.
not what I was expecting, I think. But, yeah.
No one ever expects me to say anything that I'm saying because I work on so many different types of genres that I think
Mhm.
people have a preconception of like what I'm into and what I like. And I
Sure.
like the darker stuff. I like the dark, heavy
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, Monday and I were talking before the show, and we were just saying we listened to Metamorphosis and Apogee, it was like, and now she's hooked up with Michael Ciravolo and Chuck Wright. That just it doesn't quite seem to fit, but now hearing your answers, it totally fits.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your music life like in New York in terms of performing and were you involved with like a band or did you do solo work, things like that? What's your history like there?
Well, I actually, when I was younger, I wrote a lot of songs. I did a little performances here and there, and when I was in grammar school, my teachers started to discover that I had a voice and that they wanted to start casting me for roles in just local plays and talent shows and stuff like that. So it kind of started there, and then, but I had been writing songs since I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, with the intention of I don't know what, but I just needed to write them, and it felt like a natural thing. And then I actually went to school to study to be an architectural designer when I went to college. So I was doing that for a really long time, and
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of that led me back to being a musician again, because I just at that time I had so many passions and so many ways I needed to get my artistic energy out that
Mm-hmm.
it gave me the tools to be able to express myself as like an artist with some sort of theory behind it, and not just willy-nilly like all over the place. It just kind of grounded me and gave me the tools to know how to do marketing, to know how to brand, to know how to write, to know how to compose and construct something. I often compare my designing a lot to my music because it's the same sort of approach. Like when you're constructing anything, there's proportion and balance and scale, and music is all those things. And I
Mm-hmm.
sort of think about music three-dimensionally. I had a band in 2015, 2016. I did some shows around New York to promote Metamorphosis at the time because that's when it came out. But then my producer and I were in talks about potentially moving out to LA at some point to start our own production company and push, he was working on film scores at the time, and we were collaborating, and we just kind of had similar goals. So we ended up moving out here in like 2017 into the West Coast, and then made our way down to LA probably 2018 in the spring. But yeah, I was performing not just Metamorphosis songs in New York, but I was doing like songs that had never been released. I was just like testing stuff out and trying to figure out my sound. And
Mm-hmm.
at that time I was starting to realize that like it wasn't just going to be like a clean cut sort of pop girl. Like I've always had rock roots, and like when we would do our live shows, it was such like a classic rock approach, and people really liked that because like pairing my pop voice with like a kind of a rock and roll show was like, it was dynamic enough to be different. And I started doing that out here in LA also.
Very cool. There's nothing
There's
wrong with
there's a lot there that, man, that took me in a lot of different ways. First of all, I would say you touched on the thinking of music in as 3D, excuse me, and I would say that definitely comes through in your videos. You have tons and tons of video content out there. I went as deep into the rabbit hole as I could. I'm sure I didn't see it all, but how much do you contribute to what we see in your videos?
It depends. The guy that I work with, Tim, who produced Metamorphosis and Apogee, he's like a brilliant cinematographer. He usually comes in with a vision, but he's very flexible when we're like filming together. I'll throw in ideas, he'll do things, but I usually trust him very much as like kind of a visual director. I do a lot of more of the artistic direction. There's like wardrobe and sort of kind of the performance side of it. He kind of takes care of the scouting of the locations and figuring out the logistics of everything. And We both have say in the edit, but he mostly does the editing because he's just like an insane editor. But yeah, it's you know, a lot of the times him and I are very simpatico when it comes to visuals because we've been writing and creating together for so long that our taste levels are pretty much on the same wavelength. We love all the same movies. We love all the same, like our appreciation for like cinephilia is like, you know, we both kind of have the same standards. And so when we're doing these videos, I sort of put a lot of trust in his hands that he's going to deliver something that fits what I want. And I've learned through traveling through this industry that you have to trust people and like let them do what they do well, so that you can focus on all that. You can't be, I mean, you can be a master of everything or you could be a master of nothing, but I try to stick to doing what I know are my skills and my strong suits. And I've filmed some videos with him recently. We did the song with the new single for Chuck Wright's Sheltering Sky. We did that one together, and we did one for this band called Temperamental. They're a really cool band that it's like an upcoming female rock band. So like we both collaborate on video ideas all the time, even for my own.
Wow. Okay. So now I'm unpacking that one as well. You were talking about how you construct all of this stuff. So one of the things that we really like to do on the show is we dig into complete albums as if it's just a complete piece of art and try to break that down. When you're writing a record like Metamorphosis or Apogee, do you have something like that in mind, or is it just a bunch of songs that you've created that you like and you put on, or do you actually come in with some sort of a concept that drives the record?
Metamorphosis was, I would say that most of my albums are like living organisms of my life. They're like things that are direct reflections of what I'm going through at the time. So I've always tried to approach songwriting as not like a forced thing. Like I like writing in the sense that it's like a pure stream of consciousness that's coming from me directly related to a situation that I'm in, because I feel like that's the way to get the most impact when you're trying to not only solve a problem on your own, but like a way for people to feel that it's authentic. Because I think a lot of music now is being made for consumption, and I don't like that. I like the idea of music being made because it's art, and I need to create art because I'm an artist, and this is my way of communicating to you. So Metamorphosis that was kind of like a pain response to a really traumatic time I was going through. At the time, I was living with my grandfather, and he was very ill. He was like dying from like a heart condition, and he was starting to get dementia. And I was like one of the only point people to kind of like help him navigate this and get through all this stuff and make sure he was going to his doctor's appointments. And then I was working full time and writing music with Tim. So like I was just like losing my mind. It was like the most stressful time. And I was, you know, dating this guy at the time, and I was getting out of a 15-year relationship and jumping into another relationship with somebody too soon, which probably shouldn't have happened, because I think it just created like this thing of like, I was never really appreciated, and this person is like showing me affection that I haven't felt in a while. So I felt confused about my worth. And like, you know, it's like you go through all these things, like A Fool for You being one of the tracks on there. Feeling like that you're literally just like dying, that you're bleeding out, and how long are you going to be a fool for somebody? And so a lot of the songs were like literally direct veins to the moment I was in. And it was also like a way of awakening. Like I was starting to realize that I don't want to work as a designer anymore. I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. I wanted to move forward and kind of push through this next chapter of my life. And Metamorphosis allowed me to do that. It was sort of a conversation with the self that I had never gotten a chance to talk to about, you know, my dreams, about my trauma, about everything that I had gone through in my childhood. It was my first introduction to the world. Apogee was, I don't know if you want to jump into that one yet, or if you have questions still about Metamorphosis, but Apogee was literally like, I feel like, you know, I was like confident. I was living in a new city. I felt like for once I had control over my life, and I wasn't living to serve someone else. I was free. And that, you know, that freedom of feeling like you are the epitome of the best version of yourself right now is what Apogee is all about. And it doesn't mean that you've reached the top. It just means that you're okay and you feel great in the place that you're in, because growth is constant. And I don't think we ever reach an apogee per se. I think the apogee is continual. So that answers that.
I'm actually glad you said that. And we have a question from a listener. We'll get to that in just a second. But while we're on this topic, I noticed going from listening to Metamorphosis to listening to Apogee, there is, I feel, and you can speak to this more because it came from you, but I definitely feel like there is a, style change is a bit harsh. I think it's more, but I feel like Metamorphosis has a little bit of a more mainstream sound. And then when you switch to Apogee, it feels like it's a lot more, what you were saying, like art for art's sake, and you creating what you absolutely just want to create because you have to get it out. Yeah. And I feel like there's a little bit of a difference between the two albums for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel the opposite. I feel like Metamorphosis was more of my alternative sort of sound, and maybe because it had like this 90s alternative influence of like when I grew up. And yes, it is very commercial. I will say that, like songs like Gravity and
commercial is a good word for it. That's what I mean. I said mainstream. Commercial is absolutely a good word for it.
Yeah. But Apogee, I would say, is more niche. It's commercial, but it's niche. And like, I feel there's a lot of bands that I really like that have this. They have these really commercial mainstream songs, but they don't sound like everything else that's in the mainstream. They're kind of their own little nugget of different. And I think that's what I'm always trying to do is, it's easy to listen to what's out right now or to listen to your influences and try to directly pull from that. But it's another thing to redefine what is my sound, what is my, most people might say it sounds different because they've never heard something like that before. Or maybe, it might be a new sound to your ears, or all the sounds together combined with my songwriting style. I don't know. You never really know. I mean, like the guy I've worked with in the past, he released some stuff and the market didn't know how to do anything with it, and then a few years later all of a sudden it was a hit in every country. So you kind of just have to follow your gut and make what you think sounds great and what feels good, and regardless of the pressures of the industry, because otherwise we wouldn't have some of like the most amazing songs like Bohemian Rhapsody. No one believed in that song. Everyone thought it was trash, and then it's like the biggest anthem of all time. So
right.
It's like
and what's funny is
something's gotta give.
Everything you're saying, I mean, like I'm nodding my head, especially when you said a lot of music is just consumable these days. I hate to say it, but a lot of art is disposable. It speaks for a moment, it's fleeting, and then it's gone. It's like, all right, chew, spit it out, that kind of thing. And that bothers me. I definitely like music with depth and things like that. And that made me want to bring up the song Underwater. I really loved that because it's lush and full. It reminds me a lot of like the 90s down tempo type stuff from like More Chiba and Sneaker Pimps and that kind of thing.
I love More Chiba.
Yeah, and just that every time I heard that song, I did get a little bit of goosebumps when the bass line went low and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I mean that was an era of music that I just couldn't get enough of, and I've been revisiting it a lot lately. So that was kind of like that spoonful of something you had as a kid, and you're like, man, this is welcomed. I need more of that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely like Enigma and Underwater are like two songs on that record that I feel like speak to my fascination of trip hop. But like Underwater it's a fun song because it's something you can like groove to, but it's so relaxing, and the lyrics are very ethereal and watery, to be exact. And but the content of what it's about is much darker. It's basically just saying, like, at the end of the day, like, you can blame and point your finger at every which direction, but the only one that's going to pull yourself out from under is you. And you have to kind of it's about accountability is what it's about.
That's great. And, to that, it's ingestible, but it has depth. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's not something that just kind of passes by.
It's not surface.
No, I've gone back to it a couple of times, so.
It's not surface, it's underwater.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
I need the drum so I can.
Over there.
Handsome and a comedian here. Cool. How about our listener question that we've glazed over for 5 minutes? Sorry, listener Sistine.
All right. Who would your dream collaboration be with?
Ooh, I think David Bowie, if he were still here. I don't know if we're allowed to pick alive or dead, but
No.
Take as much as you want.
Yeah.
It's a dream. It's a dream. So
definitely Bowie. I don't know what it is. Like he actually, I didn't really get into Bowie until I was a little older. I think when I was younger, I didn't connect to him because I couldn't speak to that experience yet. I think that's why it's amazing. Like certain musicians, as you grow, you start to understand and relate to them because the music they were making was targeted towards a certain age group of people. But when I started to get into my early 20s, I really was starting to dig Bowie, and I just love how soulful and rhythmic he is, and how he just has like this inhibition about like letting go and feeling his sexuality. There's just something so beautiful about an artist that does that just like Prince just completely lets go and just lets the music come through and allows themselves to just be weird and strange and kind of dig deeper into themselves. So that David Bowie would definitely be someone for me that would
Sweet.
be a dream collaboration.
What's your favorite Bowie album?
Oof. Is it? Hold on. Is the name of the album the one with oh my God.
We're gonna say Little Wonder.
Little Wonder, yeah.
That's what album is that on?
I can't remember.
That's like a '90s album, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a '90s album. That's I think I love Moonage Daydream. Like I love it's hard to pick one album because I like different songs from like different parts of his career. But the '90s one is such a cool record. It's so off the wall, and I feel like if it was released now with modern production, it would stick, you know.
Yeah,
but he was ahead of time.
Yeah, Earthling. I found it.
So Earthling. I love that record.
Yeah, it's a great one, and my favorite of all time is Low. That's like one of the '70s albums. It was West Berlin during the whole
I remember
rock era and stuff. And but no matter what, I mean, his eras, things evolved, and as an artist wants to do, and they have every right to do, and it's always been very fascinating to see how his journey just completely melded, molded, and all that good stuff. And it was always Bowie, but it always had a shift at the same time. So
and I always thought it was weird how he was so massively famous, but there was still so many people that had no idea who he was, or they didn't understand that kind of music, or it just fascinates me how you can be basically an underground star at that time. But at that time, it wasn't really underground. He was really doing the mainstream. But like even nowadays, like if I've brought up Bowie to a couple of people and they didn't even know of his music. And I was like, what planet are we all living on now that we don't know? But there's so much content out there currently that it's hard for anyone to latch onto stuff from the 70s.
Well, apparently, apparently we're not on Earth or Mars if they don't know Bowie.
Right.
I don't know.
Well said.
He's one of those artists though that if you do know him, I don't know of anybody who doesn't like him. Like he's just one of those artists that everybody's like, oh yeah, big Bowie.
Yeah, he's an icon. I mean, you can't look at him and not feel some sense of appreciation whether you like the music or not, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
All right, well, let's do a little time jump and let's go to Beauty and Chaos. Michael's been on the show 3 times. Good friend of the show, awesome dude. How in the world did you hook up with Michael for Beauty and Chaos?
We met through a friend of mine. Her name's Kat Leone. I'm sure you've heard him speaking about her before.
Yeah.
She's another female artist.
Yep.
Yeah, Kat's awesome. We became friends actually during the pandemic, which is weird because we've been in this city together for a few years. But I went to see one of her shows at the Bardot, and we said hi to each other finally because we'd been following each other on the internet. And we started hanging out, and she introduced me to Michael finally, and she said that they had collaborated on something in his project, and Michael and I got to talking, and he mentioned that he was going to do another record, and this was probably like a few months after we had met, and Kat mentioned to him that I was also a singer-songwriter, and it just kind of sprung off from there. Him and I got along really well. We both have a lot of similar musical influences, and bands that we enjoy listening to, and he sent me this request to do something that sounded like Bjork and Bauhaus. And I remember the exact message in my email, and I was like, that's such a span, or such a weird sort of reference. But then I heard the track that he sent me for Orion, and I was like, okay, I understand now. So yeah, instantly. I mean, I love everything BIC has done. I think they're just real, like as a unit, him and Razone are just like a power team. They know how to really make something so lush, and they can grow, and they've grown so much as a band. So I was really excited about being part of that, and seeing how I could fit into the landscape of what Beauty and Chaos is. And a few days later, I sent back that song, and he loved what I did, and I was shocked because I was so freaking nervous. I was like, oh my God. I don't know if, it's always the fear, whenever you write something, you're like, oh God, how's this going to sit? Is this the right direction? I don't know this person well enough to get a gauge, but I just followed my gut. I followed the music. I tried to do the song justice, and he loved it. So I'm that made me rest easy that night.
Yeah.
So
Michael, I'm not patting myself on the back, but he threw me a bone and said, "Hey, would you like to do a remix, for the Storm Before the Calm?" And
really?
So I did a remix there, and I did a remix on this new release too. I did Afterlife that Tish sang on.
Oh,
and,
nice.
Yeah. So, basically, before things were coming out, he was sneaking me some tracks to listen to.
Very nice.
So I heard yours, and I heard, everybody else too. And when I first heard Orion, I was like, okay, that's really cool. And, honestly, I felt really intimidated by that one. It's like, I don't know that I could do a remix justice on that.
That's not an easy song to remix. You'd have to do what Asteron did with my friend Tom, because he basically took it apart and reassembled it again. Because it's someone, it's funny. There was a comment on one of them saying that this is like a really deep progressive rock song, and I'm like, I guess you could look at it like that, because it literally goes on a journey. It takes you, it's not a short song by any means, and the way it's segmented, and the way all the choruses reprise, and that big crescendoing part in the center of the song, and
it's
journey. Just not a normal song to remix.
No, but then the video got fixed up, and then he sent me a preview link before he released it, and I watched it, and I was like, holy cow, these visuals are just absolutely stunning. I loved what they did with you in the in the shots and whatnot, and the effects, and on the whole band. I mean, the whole entire aesthetic is great. But that's the cool thing about Michael too, is the fact that he gives everybody free reign. He lets them express themselves, and you really get a good chance to have your own visual and interpretation of what exists, and it's a beautiful process with him, and I was very honored that he allowed me to do 2 remixes, and that was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate knowing him and seeing what's going on. It's nice to communicate with him on how things are progressing and stuff. It always gets me fired back up and start tinkering with my toys. So
Michael is wonderful to work with. He's such a gentle person, and the way he appreciates artists and gives them a space to sort of join heads, because that's what collaboration is. I mean, if you want a monster to work with, go find that somewhere, but you're not going to find that with him, because he's literally this gentle and sophisticated rock and roll guy, and it's there's so much depth to the way he writes music, and it also transcends into the way he communicates and works with people that he brings onto the family. So I feel fortunate that he invited me to be part of that.
Absolutely. Agreed.
I really appreciate Beauty and Chaos. I mean, once that came onto our radar, it's just, I love the way he puts together his albums. There aren't too terribly many artists out there who are willing to do, they just want to do the music, and then they have all these different singers. And he has really introduced me personally to so many artists. And I mean, you touched on Cat Leon, and oh my gosh, Holy Wars is just amazing. And it's so good. And we talked to Cat, and I can't remember her partner's name.
Nick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we talked to them, and they were awesome. And it's just we've been exposed to a lot of different artists, and we've actually made other friends through Michael, so that it's been wonderful knowing him. And
Yeah, Ashton
I don't,
Knight.
I don't know why he likes us so much, but hey, he's welcome. He's welcome
pretty
anytime.
obvious.
He is the most regular superstar we know. He's
But
awesome.
then I love that because when we talk to him and you hear his voice and his accent and all that, and then you look at his videos, and I'm like, oh, he's just like an old goth dude. He's adorable.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's super awesome.
Hey, Whitney, did you have any part in the videos? I mean,
Yes. Yeah. Orion, I wanted to make sure that people got the understanding of what that song is about. The song is about manipulation, and that's why we have the chess pieces as the main theme of the song.
Interesting.
When I wrote the track and I was developing the lyrics, I had this idea in my head. And you know, the music itself feels very star-like. It feels very like galaxy-esque. And so I was like, I imagine the constellation Orion. That was like the first thing that came to my head. And the irony of the constellation Orion is that Orion was a manipulator. He was manipulating people as part of the myth of the story of his life. And he came off as very strong and very powerful, but underneath that guise was somebody that you couldn't trust. And so Orion was representative of every person in my life who had manipulated me, anyone who has been manipulated by someone. And what I've learned as a trauma or abuse survivor is that the only way out of that situation is to not give into your manipulator. It's to find a way to kind of neutrally get through or walk through that situation so that you're not mirroring that person and you're not taking on those abusive tendencies, but it's also a way of protecting yourself. And so you know, Orion is all about that. And the chess pieces kind of came on as an accident. We went out scouting for props for the video, and we saw the chess pieces and we were like, wow, like these are gorgeous. Like, how can we use these in a certain way? So the director and I kind of talked about having the chess pieces look massive, kind of floating in this zero negative space, you know. And they were really, in real life, they were only like this big, but they look so big in the video just with the technique of how he filmed it. And yeah, from there it was just like in the smoke, in the haze, you know, and it's all tying into what it might feel like in your mind or in your body to not be in your body, to be under the control of somebody else. And so how do you get out of the game? How do you outsmart the manipulator, the puppet holder, the chess mover? And we're all pawns in that chessboard. So it just kind of kept developing as we went. I like for our videos to organically manifest. You know, you write a little bit of a rough treatment and then you sort of you go head on and you sort of figure it out. And because sometimes ideas will come on set and you're like, this is great, and let's work that in there. So we're very much artistic even in our process of making videos like Orion.
Cool. All right. So that brings us up to, we'll do your two songs with Vato last. Let's do the Chuck Wright Sheltering Sky now, because you had 3 songs on there. Yeah. How did that collaboration happen? There it is.
There it is. So Chuck and I, you know, I think it was like a few years ago before the lockdown, he invited me to perform at the Ultimate Jam Night. And, you know, I had never done that there before. I knew what it was because I had gone to a few of them. And it's a really big event that happens here in LA every Tuesday, or now I think it's every other Tuesday or every 2 Tuesdays. They bring in, it's kind of like just a jam, and people show up, they know what song they're going to play. They don't rehearse ahead of time with anybody in the band. You all get up on stage and you do like big songs, and they theme each rock show. And it's some of the best rock performers in LA. And they come cycle through there in between their gigs and their touring and stuff. And he invited me to come sing, I can't remember what the first one was, but he had me sing an Elton John song, and then he also had me sing a song by Sarah McLachlan. But I can't remember, it's so far back now, I can't remember which was the first one I did. But it was after that, you know, I started going to the shows more regular just to meet everybody there. And then we locked down. It was like a year later we locked down, and I got a message from him saying, "Hey, Whitney, like I finally have time to make it a record. I don't even know what I'm going to do with some of these songs." At that time, I don't even know if he knew he was going to go like full on and make a record. He was just like working with tons of his cats that he'd been playing with for, 30 plus years, So he sent me Giving Up the Ghost. He said that he wanted to have me sing on that song, but he also had another one in the back pocket he wanted me to write with him on, and that was Time Waits for No One. And then Army of Me, and so it all started developing from there, and then he started bringing in all these amazing musicians to make the record, and it started shaping up to be this incredible group of songs that, like, given my background and my history of what I like to listen to, I just thought this record was such a cool way to honor just like classic songwriting, classic 70s, 80s rock, classic rock mixed with metal and prog. And it's got like funk, it's got like all these cool different things, like all the best of that he could put together. And I was like all in. I was like, yeah, I definitely want to work on this record with you. The songs are beautiful, and it's different than what I was working on at the time.
I definitely love the diversity on the album. I mean, it really is all over the place, but that not in a bad way. I mean, everything works. Everything sounds really well. The pieces fit together. The production's fantastic. Even just the 3 songs that you are on, the Army of Me has kind of a little bit of a harder groove. Yeah. Giving Up the Ghost, you got like a pretty acoustic song. Time Waits for No One is real. Kind of, there's a little bit of airiness in the verses, and then just huge choruses, and it's really nice to hear that and hear your delivery in that, and you be able to hit the pocket in each of those songs. Very, very cool to hear. Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, they were fun to work on too. It was challenging because the register in which I was performing some of these songs is a different register than I normally sing in, and it was like getting to explore my instrument in different ways. And that's something that I've been really enjoying lately as I'm writing my new record. It's like, it's one thing to be technical as a singer, but then it's another thing to start to discover the more subtle nuances of your voice in ways that you can use it like a paintbrush versus it being just a singer. And I think that that's something I'm more interested in now is the song and the paintbrush, and not so much trying to be Celine Dion on a constant basis, because I know I can do that. I don't need to do that. So
well, you can definitely go big, that's for sure. There was some of the stuff on your solo albums, I was like, ooh, she's belting it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you feel sorry, go ahead, JPP.
No, I was just going to gush over Army of Me.
I was going to ask about that.
Bjork is one of my favorite artists of all time, and I'm not going to hoist my leg up into the camera, but I've got a Bjork tattoo on me. That's how much I've never enjoyed her through the years. So, to hear that rendition of it, it was like, this is kind of grindy. It still retains a lot of the element of the Bjork tune, but it was a really cool, 21st century interpretation.
Thank you. I was really scared to do that one, by the way, because I'm very picky with cover songs. Like, I rarely do them, and when I do them, it has to be something that I connect to. And it was just like kind of weird that he asked me to do a song that I really loved so much from Bjork, and I was like, oh, that's strange. Like, with just the alignment of asking that. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I'm not Bjork. I don't sound like Bjork. We definitely have similar approaches to the way we do things, but we don't have the same voice. So I was like, all right, well, this is going to have to be me. And it was funny because when we finished recording everything, I listened back to it and I was like, oh, damn, like I really hearing my influence of Jonathan Davis on this song, because he's like, I grew up like literally studying the subtleties of how crazy his voice is. And I used to love imitating him. And I think a lot of the softer registers of my voice, I think that's where I've over the years been able to build up this sort of timbre of like very airiness and grungy, and it's nasally, but it's not like annoying nasal. It's more of just like a floaty sort of nasal soft sound. So yeah, it was just, I think it's cool. It's kind of got this Korn-esque Army of Me vibe going on.
Nothing wrong with that. That's totally cool.
Guys,
I
I
gotta
think I
s-
just heard that she's going to do a cappella corn on the show right now. Let's
Nice.
go.
Oh my God.
That's hilarious. I definitely feel like you made the right choice going with your own interpretation of the song. I feel like if anyone tried to sing a Bjork song like Bjork, I don't
Yeah.
think anyone wins there.
Fail.
I would be scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't try to replicate. That's the whole point of doing a cover, is to make it your own. You know?
Absolutely. I am a huge fan of cover songs. I have a playlist on Spotify. It's probably got almost like 800 cover songs on it. I'm a sucker for a good cover song. So
Same.
I enjoyed it.
You know, it's funny. I don't know if many people remember this, but when Limp Bizkit did a cover of Behind Blue Eyes on
Oh, yeah.
I actually really loved that cover. I thought that was
I do too.
I thought that was like a really brilliant. I would have never pegged him to be like the one to pick that song, but I was like,
Yeah.
it's part, and it fit the whole record. So
I think it really works. That is probably one of my favorite Fred Durst performances.
Mhm.
That cover is fantastic. It really is.
it is.
Guys, can I bring up something from the past? What are our thoughts now that we've had a lot of time to ingest Danzig singing Elvis tunes?
Oh,
Well, sometimes we love Danzig, but
Mhm.
that was a bit rough.
that
for us.
record, yeah, for Whitney, I don't know, you probably don't know, but we actually reviewed that record when it came out on the show, and boy, is it hit or miss.
I know.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's
And we
some of it
typically
was
don't-
awesome, some of it was really
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah, well, and we don't typically like to slam things on the show. There's enough negativity in the world. We like to uplift things that we love.
Mhm.
And we were hoping that we were going to love that record because we really like Danzig, but whew,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens. It happens.
it does.
Sometimes you miss, you know.
Yep. It's like when a family member makes a famous recipe in your family and they just miss the mark. You're like,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry.
Hey, before we move on, I got to ask you, because you said that you had covered a Sarah McLachlan song. And so I love Fumbling Towards Ecstasy. That was a fantastic record. It was before she got pegged with the song with the dogs and it's sad and everything, you know. But that record is so good. What song did you perform by her?
I performed Angel, but it's actually another. There's all these weird coincidences with Chuck and I. It's like he and I both love Sarah McLachlan very much, and when I was younger, I remember before I had access to any sort of computer, like music making equipment, I used to record these demos of me on my computer covering various songs, Angel being one of them. And I kept it for so long that I used to, anytime I wanted to perform somewhere, before I had a portfolio, I would send these groups of songs out to whoever I was working with at the time, say, hey, this is what I sound like, would love to perform at your venue, blah, blah, blah. And Angel was always one of them in there. And because I felt like it was one of those songs that showed off, you know, the timbre of my voice, and it also showed range as well. So sorry, I have all these things coming on my screen right now. I'm trying to get them. But my personal favorite song of Sarah's is Fear. I don't know if you know that song, but there's something so, I don't know how to describe it, visceral and ethereal and just interdimensional about that song. And it always freaks me out every time I listen to it. I want to cover that one eventually, because I think that one just means something to me the most of all the songs. And Sweet Surrender is like another one of my favorites of hers. But there's so many. There's so many songs by her. I could go on all day about Sarah McLachlan. She's definitely one of my biggest, I think, music, like songwriter influences.
Yeah, definitely. That was Ice off that record. Love that one. That was just Hold On. Yeah, that record is killer. So you should definitely produce those and we'll listen. It's a deal. That's all we have to do. You just have to do it and we'll listen to you.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
man.
Sounds like an easy deal.
Yeah, for us.
I'm just excited I got to talk about Fred Durst for a second.
Right? Yeah, I bet you didn't think I was going to name drop him today.
That was
No.
that was definitely not anything I expected.
Fantastic. Anything else? Oh, you know what we were talking about is so we all love your three songs, but each of us right now are going to pick our favorite non-Whitney Sheltering Sky song.
Okay, cool.
All right, Monday, go first.
I didn't write the title down. I don't remember what the title is, but it's the very first song.
Oh, that
Because I going
The
into
Weight
it,
of
I didn't
Silence
really
is
have
the
any
instrumental?
expectations.
Yeah. Did you say, is it The Weight of Silence? Is that
Yeah.
the one?
I'm sorry. Yes, yeah. Sorry, you guys are. I was freezing up for you, I'm sure. But so yeah, so that very first song, because I had zero expectations, and I put it on, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really good." And halfway through it, I'm like, "Oh, I think this is an instrumental," and I immediately added it to my instrumental playlist. So, yeah, so that first song really impressed me, and then the whole album, the rest of it was just a treat. So.
Nice.
Yeah. JPP.
You're gonna put me on the spot. Admittedly, I told these guys I've had a crazy busy week, so I haven't had a chance to listen to much. But I had it on in the background while I was doing some chores, and Throwing Stones really hit me good, especially the bass line, really good and busy and all that. And I was like, man, this would be a fun one to play live. It's the first thing I thought when I was hearing it. So that was an awesome standout non-Whitney track.
Nice.
All right. For me, it's another instrumental. And so earlier in the record, I heard, they had the Irish fiddle in one of the songs. I'm like, that's really cool. And then I'm listening to Farewell Horizon, and all of a sudden the classical violin comes in. And it was like the song was super cool. And then when those strings hit, oh my God, that was like just took it to a new level. So
Yeah.
I love a lot of the songs on there, but Farewell Horizon really hit me in the sweet spot. So
I
Whitney?
love that one too. I love that one too. I think my favorite, if I had to pick, would be Darkness, Darkness. There's something about his voice and just melodically for me. It feels like this yearning. It has like this great west, like out west sort of feeling, and like it's very freeing. It's a very freeing song, and I think that a lot of the songs they have like this a lot of upbeat energy, but I tend to lean more into like the sort of into the more soft sort of flowy songs, and I think Darkness Darkness has that like vibe for me. Second to that would be probably the other side. I love that song.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So I guess before we get off here, Monday and I were talking beforehand. So on your song for Army of Me was Pat Torpey. He passed in 2018. Can you like walk us through how that happened? Because he was featured on that song.
Yeah, I mean he and Chuck played on that track together a few years prior, so they had already started making this demo. And then when he passed away, Chuck didn't really know what to do, and then he rediscovered the demo again and said, I need to honor him in this way. And so then he started getting all the people together and to make the track. So it didn't really all happen at once. It was sort of this piecemeal of different things coming together. And so a lot of it was on there already. We had some additional string work added in there, like synthesizer stuff that was put in later, and then vocals and extra production elements. But, Pat and him had created this base for the track. I'm not sure exactly what year, but
yeah, when I saw the track listing and I saw it said Pat Torpey on there, I was like, man, really? Like I'm like, I swear he passed away several years ago. And so I was really curious about how long Chuck had been holding on to that. And I mean, it makes sense for them to be friends. I'm sure they travel a lot of the same circles. And I'm a big fan of Mr. Big. So I immediately knew the name Pat Torpey, and that's very cool that he was able to do something with that recording.
And it also gave it gave Army a lot more meaning than just a cover, because it was a tribute to somebody who he had really loved and cared about. And it just made me approach the song differently as a singer. And, I have to respect and honor the fact that this song was written with someone who was very important in his life. And also the song was very important to the moment about what was going on, with women's rights. And I think just everything coming together as one it was that synergy of people that he brought together, people who actually cared about the music and it meant more, especially during lockdown when everything was awry and like we didn't know what the hell was going on. So it felt like the one light in the darkness at that time. So
Yeah, that was cool. I assume it probably got pushed back a little because of COVID. So this whole project probably got stunted a little bit because of that.
yeah. Actually, I think he started it because of COVID. I think COVID gave him the opportunity to actually sit down because he was always out on the road with Quiet Riot. You know, he was always running Ultimate Jam Night. He had so many other gigs he was doing, and he expressed to me at the time that he'd been trying to just sit down and dedicate a chunk of time to writing a record of his own, and or at least writing songs that he can put out. And when he started to see how all the songs were coming together, it was just another reason to like say now or never. I got to put out this record. You know, it's and stuff he had laying around, new stuff that he created. So it was really cool.
I think we were all pleasantly surprised by the record. You know, hearing Chuck Wright, you go Quiet Riot, and then you get what you get in this record, and it's like, oh my gosh, this thing is, as Bundy said, all over the place in a very good way. So
Yeah,
that's what I said. I had zero expectations going in, and I was very pleasantly surprised with the diversity and everything. It's a very, very cool record.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your two recent singles with Harry Bato. So you said, I think earlier, this is going to be part of a bigger piece. It's going to be part of an album, or how's that working out?
They were just two singles that we, because Harry reached out to me, and just, I don't know how he found me, honestly. He just found me on the internet somehow, and he reached out and he said, hey, I wrote this track, you know, would you be interested in top lining on it? And I said, well, sure, let me take a listen to it and see if it fits what I'm, you know, what I like doing. And you know, I heard the track for Dreamcatcher and I was like, oh, this is really cool because it's not like a typical, I like that he approaches dance music still with that sort of 80s, 90s retro vibe, which is something I grew up listening to. And a lot of the modern EDM songs are a little bit, they're just a little bit sterile for me. They don't have any nostalgia wrapped into it, or at least it's not referencing anything that feels like something I relate to. And, you know, I thought back to like Kylie Minogue and like artists like that, like people who are making beautiful disco funk pop music. And, you know, I was like, sure, I'm going to write on this. We wrote Dreamcatcher, and then we liked working together so much that he came back with another track, and I started working on that one too. And I'm sure we might collaborate in the future, considering that we like kind of our flow of working together. But, I was thinking of maybe putting out an acoustic version of Dreamcatcher in free time, which I thought would be a cool little EP. So that's something that I've been brewing on in my head and thinking about how I'd want to put that together.
Yeah,
that would be very interesting. I mean, stripped down. I mean, they're all electronic with your vocals, so to strip it down to something like that, I think would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Dreamcatcher has kind of a bit of the synthwave vibe. I'm a huge synthwave fan for sure, and so that caught my ear immediately. I was like, "Go on."
So, is there a plan for an album for you in the near future?
Yes, I'm already working on it now. I've been working on it for the last year and a half, and this one's been different because generally my albums have been me and Tim, and we kind of do everything in the box. You know, we might have a string player come in here and there because it's electro rock music, you know. But this next record is different because it's all the players on the record. It's kind of like I picked with my producer Tom that I'm working with. His name's Tom Hatz. We both hand cherry picked each musician that we wanted to play on every song. Chuck will be on my record too. He's playing bass on a couple of songs.
Cool.
Awesome.
And I have a couple of other really, really amazing musicians that are going to be on this record that have contributed their talents to this record. And I also have somebody that I'm waiting on to come back from tour and lay down some pedal steel. So like these songs are going to be a little bit more shoegazy dream pop. It's got a little bit more of a desert sort of West vibe to my already sort of dream pop sound, but I would say it's a little bit more earthy and organic. It's not as digital I wanted it to sound like a live record. So having it feel like a live record, not super polished, maybe a little bit lo-fi, you know, like I wanted it to have a little bit more of a lo-fi. I'm kind of going deeper into this place of crafting the sound to feel like something out of like an old radio, which is like kind of
okay.
the song content is different. The lyrics are very different. Then I wanted to challenge myself and put out an album that was, how do I jump off from Apogee? How do I jump off from Metamorphosis and not make the same songs? I want to make new songs that still are me, but show how much I've grown and where reflection of who I am now as an artist. So
Can you talk about that thematically, or is that something you want to keep under wraps until we actually get the record?
I mean, we can talk a little bit about it. Thematically, you mean as far as the topic matter, or?
Yeah, just give us a sense of what can we expect from the message of the songs.
I would say that the message in these songs is going back to nature, kind of going back to the basics of who you are, of kind of stripping away and being okay with not being okay. I think that we all try to put on this visage that we are composed and our composure is always all right. But if I've learned anything over the years of being a struggling artist and just living life, is that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to be more expressive and honest about the things that you think no one gives a shit about. And I think lyrically, I wanted to be more playful. I've always considered myself a poet before anything, and I think that I wanted to find a way to get my poetry to somehow fuse with my songwriting at some point, so that I could bring in those sort of existential, weird, ethereal topics into a more sort of Joni Mitchell like approach, you know. So I really love folk music, and so you're going to get more elements of folk on this record. I would just call it, I was calling it dream gaze. That was like what I wanted to call it, because it's got the lo-fi elements, but it's still pop construction, pop hooks, and commercial sort of choruses and verses and stuff. But it's the way it's put together feels like kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of, again, like a paintbrush. I'm just kind of painting over these really expansive spaces that are, it's more about your relationship to sound and not necessarily just sound itself. So you find yourself as the listener, like, where am I in this song? I can feel myself within the corner of this verse, or floating over the top of this area. And so it's an exploration of space.
That's awesome. Fantastic.
Sounds fun to me.
No, everything you're saying, I'm like, man, you know, it's like I get lost in a riff in here, you know what I mean? And you just really kind of hone in and be in the moment of it, and drives my wife and kid crazy, because it's like, that's been on loop for like 5 hours. Yes, I know, but it's evolving in my brain. Let me let this flourish, right? So, no, you know, and to your point, talking about this new album, I had 2 questions. Do you ever find yourself, this is a struggle I have, because I play guitar, I play keyboards and things like that, and sometimes it's like, it's a balance between, all right, I've done a lot with the synths and I'm starting to get a little synthed out and I need more organic elements. I need to kind of balance it a little more, or take a little break and kind of feel back connected to the roots of existence, if you will. I mean, do you find yourself in those timbre and textural conflicts at times when you're creating?
Oh God, all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. Because the majority of the songs I write now are on acoustic guitar. So when I start there, it's hard to lose that. You know, it's hard to like start there and then watch it drift further and further away from that. But which is funny, because when you look at a lot of writing sessions that people go into, it starts out that basic. And then the song ends up, the amalgamation ends up being this very digital sounding thing. And I wanted to make sure that the songs I wrote for this record maintained a very, very like 95% level of live organic connection to the finished product. And that's okay, because I think there's different ways to write. You know, sometimes when you write on synth or when you write on piano, you have to kind of take it there. you know, but when you write on guitar, it's like a whole other approach to making music. And my theory is if you can strip any song down to a guitar, then I think you've got something there that you can hold on to. But there's certain songs you can't strip down to a guitar because you lose that sense of atmosphere, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like if Tony or one of our other collaborators was here, he could tell me the album off the drop of his tongue right there. But it was a Nine Inch Nails live performance with just him and a piano. You know what I mean? So he stripped a lot of the songs down to more basic arrangements, and you can hear that for sure. My second question I had, talking about the folk element, have you ever heard of an electronic artist named Bibio, Bibio?
I haven't.
He's on Warp Records. He calls himself more of a folktronic artist, and he's done a lot of electronic stuff in the past. But he's gotten more organic, and he does a lot with like mandolin and fiddle, acoustic guitar as well. But he also uses old analog gear, and he recorded himself, you know, by the bed of a creek, and you hear the birds and the nature with him and stuff. Absolutely fantastic. I suggest you listen to the song Curls. I don't want to influence any of your creative arrangements by any means, but as somebody who loves hearing some of that lo-fi texture in a more natural element, I highly suggest him. He is absolutely fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's a new artist I discovered recently. His name's Ginger Root, but he plays like every instrument, and he adds a lot of like lo-fi 80s analog sounds in there, and it's just, it blows my mind because it's got all the makings of 80s pop, like dance, like soul funk, but then it's got this lo-fi down tempo thing going on with it too. So I love mashing up organic instruments and sounds with textures and things like that. I think it's a way to keep something feeling grounded and earthy without completely detaching the listener from, you know, the creation process of making a song.
Yeah. No, that's great. There's another artist. He's completely opposite of it. I recently found VHS Head. I don't know if you've ever heard him or not, but
no.
I think he's from Europe. But he has a huge collection of old '90s VHS tapes, horror movies and whatnot, and he samples them and creates songs based off of little bits of the soundtrack or like a voiceover blurb from Tremors or whatever, and
cool.
he creates this like real deep, dark, evil sounding story out of it. It's weird and great at the same time.
Wow, I'll have to check that out. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I live for the weird. And Metalhead Monday said he has a question. I'll quit rambling here. I'm good at that, for the record.
Yes, that's true.
I actually had a specific song I wanted to ask about. I was curious about your song, "The Cure." It absolutely blew me away. The way it starts with just the organ, and it's kind of a little bit of a droney, almost staccato thing, and you singing over it, and man, when it comes in, it just punches you and you're like, whoa, I was not expecting that. And it's almost, it has a little bit of that. Paul mentioned Trent Reznor just playing the piano. It has a little bit of that feel. And then it comes in, I'm like, man, this is almost like it's got a little bit of a Southern flavor to it. And it's very, very cool song. My question was actually about the Warm audio video, because that is the first I saw that video before I listened to the album, and I was like, this is an interesting idea. And did they approach you, and did they pick that song specifically, and like how did that all work?
They approached me, but they allowed me to select which song that I wanted to choose. I picked The Cure because I felt like song-wise, vocal-wise, and performance-wise, people used to go wild for it at our shows. People loved the simplicity and the message behind that song, and it's also a song that really like grabs you by the ass and forces you to like kind of come on, just get up and
it really does
fight for your right to be an autonomous human being. And so I think that's I loved that. I've always loved that song. I started writing it when I was living in Jersey. I was writing it on my guitar, and then I showed it to my producer, and he loved it. And then he started building upon it, and we came to this like big wall of sound sort of thing where it hits you right in the face. And I love that the audience never expects it either, because when we do it live, people think, oh, okay, it's starting out as like a soft song, like,
yeah,
and then it's like
it's almost that trick where you talk quietly when you're doing a presentation, or if you're comedians do it sometimes, you speak quietly to kind of, so everybody kind of leans in and listens, and then bam, and you're like, whoa. And it's such a great song. But I was really curious about the video, like how that all worked with the selection and all that.
Yeah, they were doing those videos for a while, and I was really shocked that they reached out and asked me to be part of that, because it's always good, like, you don't really get opportunities like that all the time, where you're able to create something that professional for a live sort of scenario. And I was just excited because I needed to show people that I'm more than just a studio rat. Like, I love live and I love performance, and it gives people a sense of who I am as a person, not just as a producer writer. So
that was a cool room.
Whatever warm audio is doing, it's working, because I am not a musician. I don't use any of that gear. I've never heard of warm audio, but I've watched that video like 10 times. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I'm a sucker for Rhodes too. Yeah, I love the Rhodes in that track.
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
so.
Here's a question for you. It's deep. Since Whitney mentioned Joni Mitchell, Pink Floyd, etc., does she find the messages to be more or less important than sound? Her music and voice has a wonderful blend, so I'm curious.
Maybe everyone approaches it differently, but I can't separate message from sound. I think one informs the other. When you start writing, it works both ways. Sometimes I start out with a melody, or and then all of a sudden the melody informs the lyrics. The sound of a melody line and where it goes can ask for a certain subject matter. A chord progression, depending on the mood of the chord progression, will ask you for something. And so I try to listen in tandem, and whenever I'm writing something, I make sure that, am I serving the song or am I serving myself? And I think the answer is always to have both of those things be synonymous and feel natural, is that they have to be in unity with one another. For me, obviously, message is very important because I am a writer. And so it is harder for me to write songs that make no sense, because there's a lot of them out there where the lyrics just make no sense, but it works because it fits the sound. Sometimes you have to make those sacrifices because it sounds good, but I'll do my best to make sure it means something first.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. You're going to have to explain some of these to us. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So the left is a show. I have an acoustic show coming up.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a solo show with my friend Tom. We're going to do a couple of acoustic songs in Beverly Hills at Attitude Lounge.
Excellent.
So we hope to see anyone there that wants to just kind of have an intimate one-on-one sort of sesh. And the right is Gritty and Pink. They've been organizing live events. They're all about helping females kind of rise up in the music industry and have a community and platform in which to express their music and art. And it's just it's a community making opportunities. And Shira, who heads up Gritty and Pink, she's so great at bringing all types of artists together and showcasing them and highlighting them. This will be an event that's going on at the Echo in Echo Park. It's going to be like a jam, kind of similar to Ultimate Jam Night. It's all girls getting up and performing an unrehearsed song together for the first time.
Very cool.
So yeah, it should be that. This is the second one I've done with them. We did another one in Long Beach a few months ago, and this one's for Pride Month. So I'm excited about that. There's a lot of cool artists on the bill there, and I know a lot of these girls on there. So it's like kind of like a big family event whenever you do one of these, because you get to hang out with all the people that you know in the industry, which is really fun.
I see Emily Dickinson will be performing, so that'd be cool to hear some of her poems.
Yeah, it would be weird that she was there.
Yeah.
Considering the time issues.
All right. So I've got a couple of the stills I showed earlier. What is this photo from?
This is a still from my music video for Incantation.
Love that song.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous song.
That's a cool video too. I love all the black and white.
It's cool to watch, but it was difficult to film that video.
Yeah.
It was so cold, and this is the Oregon, North California coastline during the fall, spring. So
yeah,
it was freezing. So we suffered for this art.
And those are typically long days when you're filming things like this too. So
yes, but the violinist who co-wrote this with me, she was a beast. She was out there in the water barefoot. She was like, yeah, and she's like on the violin, like going crazy. I'm like, you're nuts, like what are you doing? But she didn't care. Just like frostbite or not, she was out there in the water, like just like, you know. And I had forgotten how much I lost my New York roots in that moment when I was just like freezing cold. You know?
Anything for art.
I know.
oh yeah.
But that song, Incantation and Starfish, are like definitely two of my highlights on Apogee.
Yeah.
So that
Very
was
Have you heard
very
of the musician? I think his name is Quabs out of the UK.
You guys are hitting me with all these new artists I have.
He's got a song called
Put
Move
in the show
Me.
notes.
Yeah, he's got a song called "Move Me" that's one of my absolute faves. The music video visually is beautiful too, and he's out in the middle of the snow, walking with minimal clothes on, and like it's deep too. And somebody asked what it was like filming that video, and all he said was very cold. You know? And so I can only imagine suffering for the art in those fashions for sure.
Yeah.
I'm here in the Midwest, so I'm resilient to the elements, but I have my limitations.
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. This was recently I did they had my friend Mike Green, he put on a private house show. It was really nice because there was a lot of talented musicians there that were playing and featured that night, and I was excited that he asked me to be part of it because it was like the first sort of community show outside of COVID that I had participated in. And it's always nice doing house shows because in LA they seem to be better than the venue sometimes because people are way more attentive. You're really like, people show up for the purpose of hearing a show. They're not just at the bar hanging out or like being loud. So I live for more of these types of performances where it's a curated event with other bands, local bands, and I had a lot of fun that day.
What'd you play?
Actually, new songs off my upcoming record. So right now I'm sort of doing what I did with Apogee. I'm like field testing all my new songs, seeing what people respond to, kind of getting a gauge of the response of, where it's going. And it does help because when you get in the studio to like do all the finishing touches, things you might have done in the live performance, you might want to incorporate into the final recording. So I did that with Apogee. That's actually how Not Without Love became this sort of really big choral, because it started out more subdued. And when I started playing that one live, I started belting out those choruses live. Like, oh shit, like this would be so cool on the record. I got to find a way to make this work. And, Tim and I massaged the crap out of it and we were able to make it work. So
definitely a big vocal on that one.
Yeah.
Cool. So was the reception warm? Is that what you were hoping for your new record?
Yeah, I was just more so emotional to play these songs because I had been sitting on them like from COVID, because I wrote a bunch of them during COVID, and then some of them were new compositions I wrote with Tom. So hearing people's response, and then I played solo on a song that I played some acoustic of my own, and I love the response that people had. It's like every time I get behind the guitar, people really like that. So I'm trying to do more of that, in my shows. Just before we were doing full band performances, so it was like rock shows. So I wasn't doing acoustic at the time. So, but I've been enjoying the process of stripping things down and making it feel more raw and organic.
You should do what Ashton does. He does like a Facebook night where he'll just sit in his living room and play the acoustic guitar and sing.
Yeah.
and people go crazy for it, and it's so good. So you
Yes,
should.
I love
you should try
Ashton's
that.
music. Yeah.
Well, that is excellent. I can't wait for your record. We are definitely going to review it on the show. So
Thank
Absolutely.
you. I'm excited. I can't wait to be out in the world.
gentlemen, do you have any last questions for Miss Tai? We've kept her now over an hour. So I want to be respectful of her time.
Quick, something quick. How was the tiny desk experience? That was what, like an audition or something that you did?
Yeah.
Was that all that was?
Yeah, it was just an entry video into the contest. I was like the first time that I was able to get something together fast enough to be able to submit, because it's like you always find out about these things too late and you're like, oh crap, I missed the deadline. So like I picked one of the first song I ever released, because that was a pop dance song, and I was like, I'm gonna strip this down and just do it acoustic and in a way people haven't heard it yet. And so, that's still one of my most streamed songs, To Be Loved.
Very
So
cool.
And who was that performed with you?
that's his name was Andrew Dodge. So he was performing with me a lot when I lived in Portland, and he performed with me also in The Cure on that Warm Audio video as well.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just we did a couple of shows together and stuff, but he's kind of gone solo and he's working on some other things now. So I've kind of moved into I've kind of shifted my players around a little bit, and I'm working with different people. And that's the thing, like as you grow with different musicians, everybody goes different ways, and you kind of have to hold on to your sound, because some people become so integral to your sound. And you can hear that in bands like Yes. You take Rick Wakeman away, and like you have like a huge chunk of your sound kind of ripped away from the band. So that's been a struggle of mine, is keeping my sound intact as the musicians move in and out of the project. So
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Tai, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Is there anything that we missed that you just got to get out there?
I think we covered a lot. I mean, there's a few releases that I have out that I don't know if you guys found on the internet, but I put out an EP right before I left New York called Forever, and it's a little rock EP. You can find it on my Spotify channel.
Cool.
I was listening to the Smiths a lot, and I was feeling a certain kind of way about life, so that was a fun little
Staring at the floor. I'm kidding.
And then I don't know if you saw Flowers by the Roadside. That was like a single release that I called it a mini EP, like a folktronica EP. It's kind of got like the Carpenters vibe, but like stripped down, like really, really, really pared down.
Cool.
And I wrote those with like a classical guitar player that I'm really close friends with here in LA. And so those are two fun ones that I really love. I still have like an emotional attachment to those songs, lyrically and just musically, because they're so different than everything else that I have out there. But as of right now, I'm just stoked to like keep working on this record. I'm also working on a new single right now with Tim Jansen's. So that one I can't wait to let out into the world, because it's a really cool song. It's different.
Is that stuff released under his name?
No. Everything's under mine.
Okay.
Name.
Cool.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now we have work to do, guys. We get to go look up some more music.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely on the Spotify stuff. I'll go as deep as I can, because I'm a playlist guy, and if I find an artist I like to build the playlist so I have everything in one spot, and I don't have to, mess around with shifting between stuff. So I will definitely be checking all of that out.
And it's also fun to listen to an artist and then see where it takes you on a random algorithm playlist too, because there's things that are similar and that kind of thing.
True.
So,
True.
yep.
Okay,
Go ahead. I
Whitney,
didn't mean to cut you off.
if people are trying to find you on the internet or anywhere for your music, where can they go?
You can go to, if you want to like go to the center, you can just go to my website at whitneytaimusic.com. You can get offshoots to whatever platform you like being on from that website. You can find me on Instagram at Whitney Tai, or TikTok at Whitney Tai. Twitter is also Whitney Tai. So pretty much all the platforms, I'm on all of them. So it's, if you just type it into Google, it should be easy to kind of pop up and find where I'm at. But
Did you say WhitneyTaiMusic.com?
yeah.
Cool.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We'll just put that right there.
Cool.
And you spelled it right.
Yay.
Quiet. Tell you, JPP.
Uh-huh.
Well, again, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We are big fans, and we will continue to follow and support you and shout from the rooftops what an amazing artist you are.
Yep.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. I had so much fun. It didn't even feel like an hour and 20. I'm just like,
I know.
I was
it goes like
enjoying.
that.
I was enjoying just the different, like being able to talk to all of you, and it's usually just a one-on-one sort of thing. So to have this kind of chat, this 4-up thing going on was kind of fun. So.
Well, thank you for your time, and we're always shocked when someone actually wants to speak to us rather than us finding them. So
Well,
yeah.
I would imagine anyone that Steve is affiliated with is really dope. So I figure we were just gonna have a great time anyway.
I'm pretty sure she just said you guys were dope. So I'm going to mark that down. May
Dopes.
29th.
Yeah.
You two are officially dope.
Nice. Yes. And I just want to say, thanks for making music. I mean, it's in the 21st century, it's easy to do, but it's also very challenging to do. You know what I mean? So in the world of preset loops and that sort of thing, to forge your own path is sometimes a daunting task. So I definitely appreciate your voice. I appreciate the elements that surround it. And I really look forward to your future endeavors. So please keep us posted. We will be more than happy to ingest it.
We're all fans. So
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Shucks.
Thank you so much. And you can find Whitney Tai at WhitneyTaiMusic.com. And you can find Wanderings and Wool Gathering on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, and SoundCloud. You can find album, movie, TV, comics reviews at WanderingsandWoolgathering.com. See you next week for episode 115. We are breaking form again because my daughter insists that we review Harry Styles. I listened to half of it today. Not so shabby. So next week hopefully will be a good time. So until then, everybody, bye now.
Hi, thank you.